Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Live Free and Ham. We're on our live stream. All right. Well, I hope as the chat kind of gets going here, we'll start to see a bunch more people jumping in there. But hopefully everybody's doing well tonight. And to my obviously ham radio brothers, Paul and Todd, how are you guys doing this evening?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Just finished the net and just made it in time for the live stream.
Yeah, your nets, they've been punishing you a lot, especially.
I know.
You stick around for the full limit there, huh?
I'm gonna have to change days with someone, I think, if this keeps going on.
Let's all go downhill from there. So that's a bummer. All right. Well, hey, we've got a special guest on tonight's show. I'd like to welcome Craig, N1SFT. Say hello, Craig. How you doing?
Hi, Eric. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Awesome. Well,
and we're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
Yes, we are. Yeah, all right, cool. Well, that's awesome. Before we kind of get into our conversation tonight, I wanted to kind of let you guys know about a bunch of different things going on. As we've been alluding to in a couple of other previous episodes, we've been building up the storefront there. We are always making new shirts and new gear. And so, without further ado, we've got our classic hoodie out. I just got one shipped from our printers just recently. Love it. Great quality, awesome design on it. And one of my favorites, which actually I'm wearing right now, is our Radio Wave shirt. So, if you're a big Poto Life guy, you got to have the Radio Wave shirt. So head on over to our storefront there and check that stuff out and let us know. And, last but not least, as we always been alluding to, and we keep making mention to about Paul, making his ham radio makes me feel dumb. Well, now you can wear it in a shirt and wear it proudly. So, head on, like over there, check that out. Let us know what you think. And, if you, don't know what that link is, we'll post that over there in the chat for everybody. And you can feel free to, peruse that when you get a chance. Otherwise, we'll be putting more stuff in that store and looking forward to that in the future. So, as I said before, thanks again, Craig, for coming on the show tonight. And maybe for all the folks in the chat, you can kind of give us a little bit more about yourself, Craig, and kind of share a little bit about your ham story there, and then we can kind of get into a little bit of the shenanigans after.
Sure, no problem. Let's see. I got my technician ticket back in 1994, and was fairly active with my HT throughout high school and throughout UNH. Got out of UNH and had to shelf it. So I took a hiatus from ham radio, and about 15 years later, I dusted it all off, and I got back into it. 15 years is a lifetime with ham radio, of course, so a lot of things have changed. But I'm glad I kept my ticket active, and so I'm now an amateur extra, and love operating out in the outside, big field day operations, summer, winter field days. It's my jam. And let's see, professionally, I'm a land surveyor and also an engineer. Work for the
Very
family
cool.
company, and so
And
that's about
you
it.
got a photo, right? Being outdoors all the time too. Yes, no.
That's
Photo
right.
guy?
Well, I've never activated. I've
No?
never activated officially a park.
Oh
It's
my.
always been
Well,
bigger than that. Yep.
Todd, well, now you have a challenge. You got to take Craig out. Craig took you out, so you got to do it in reverse now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Craig and I met. Just how I met him is I was a new ham, and I think we met on the repeater, or we met somewhere on the radio, and he invited me to go with a bunch of guys to what was that? What was
It
that
was
park called?
Portsmouth. It was
Newcastle.
Newcastle. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the fort there.
Yep.
So we went. So I went there, and I didn't know what to expect. I was just kind of hanging around, offering to help or whatever, and saw a guy throw up a wire. Next thing you know, he's talking to Italy. I'm like, "Whoa, this is pretty cool." So we were there all day, and that's how we kind of met, and we've kept in touch through the radio and stuff. And I knew that he had said how awesome it was that we were starting a podcast and live stream and YouTube and stuff. So I wanted to get him on, and we had an opportunity, and I said, "Hey, why don't you come on?" And he's very big into the Wolf Pack, which is a fusion room, and they also do a net, and he also does the and quote, if I'm wrong, Craig, just so he also does a net on Sundays that goes over. It's kind of like a tech info for system fusion, so it's a pretty good net. I try to get on it when I can with baseball and stuff. I caught it on the way into baseball practice, and I sent him a text. I said, "Hey, remind them that we're going to be on tonight." As baseball practice ended, the net was just ending. So I heard the very beginning, the very end. But it's a really good net, and there's a lot of good guys on there all around the country, really, that have checked in. And if you've got questions about fusion or anything, that's where to go. So that's us.
So let's kind of dive into it. So I mean, obviously, Todd, you grabbed the bull by the horns there. So Craig, I mean, you kind of been, you got your hands in a lot of different things, which is awesome. Let's kind of start somewhere. So obviously, you've got the Nefaro group. So talk a little bit about that. What I like to call the anti-club group, but it's a club anyway, sort of in a weird way.
Yep.
But talk a little bit about that and let us know.
Sure. So I'm really proud of both these groups that I'm part of. These teams. The first team is the Nefaro, and that's NEFARO, stands for Northern New England Field Amateur Radio Operators. We wanted something that sort of rolled off the tongue, and we put together a small group of a band of outlaws that we all enjoy field day. And around beginning of COVID, the big clubs couldn't operate a normal field day operation. It was just too dangerous for the big clubs with health care issues, and young people, old people. And so there was a handful of us who were middle to old who didn't care about the health risks. And so we ended up putting together a small band of folks who wanted to do field day. And in order to pull a club call sign, the FCC required you to have some paperwork. And so we put together just enough paperwork, bylaws and whatnot, with just a handful of our signatures. There were 6 of us, just enough to go and issue a club call sign. And so we pulled anyone. Actually, we started with KC1 MXF, which is a mouthful. And so we eventually changed that over to NE1 FO, November Echo 1 Fox Oscar. And so we use that call sign when we're activating for field day summer, field day winter, Veterans Day, like Todd was talking about. We'll go all over the place. I want to make a shout out to Pat W1YTT. Pat Morrison has really taken the bull by the horns, and he has really taken and given leadership to Nefaro. He and I started it, and I've had to back off because of family and work. But New Faro lives and strong. We activated Hudson, New Hampshire, Benson's Park for Winter Field Day this year. It was fantastic. It's not a typical club. It's not a general. The point was not to make new hams and teach and do classes. The point was to activate for field day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want to go out with your buddies who are not brand new. No offense, Todd, but you don't get my point. And we get out of the truck, we roll up, we get out of the truck, and very few words are spoken. We know exactly what needs to happen, and we meet just 3 times a year. That's about it. That's the 30,000 foot level on that one, Eric.
So it's primarily just like kind of a band of guys that, under the guise of a club, loose club fitted, group that, your focus is primarily field day. So you guys, are you a competitive group, or you just kind of like, hey, we all get together and we're like happy if we make contacts, but we're enjoying hanging out and playing radio?
I'd say we're half and half. Some of us are really competitive. Some of us really just want to have fun. I think we've been not the bottom of the barrel as far as placings go. We're certainly not winning these things, but we're not supposed to. It's not really a contest. Nope. But we go, we see what we did last year, and we want to make it better from last year. And so we're competing against ourselves.
Right.
Now,
and what do you guys usually run? You guys like a 4 or 5 or smaller than that, or
Yeah, we're a 5 alpha. We're typically
nice.
5 alpha. And so the thing that we wanted to do first was to put together a triplexer. So we found a company that would make us a custom triplexer that would handle 20, 40, and 80. And then we pump that into a end fed. I think we're using a Palomar Engineers end fed right now. It handles 500 watts, and you need that big power handling when you're running 3 stations into that end fed wire. We do fantastic with that end fed. We'll launch, and we've tried everything. We've tried springs, we've tried the stupid bag, the arborist bags, but we finally resolved ourselves into an air cannon, and so we'll launch over a tree to haul this stuff up.
Yep, air cannon will beat out anything over, including a game of rock paper scissors. So yeah,
you're darn right.
So with the custom triplexer, you can all be receiving and transmitting at the same time, and nobody interferes.
It's amazing. Some of the physics and behind going on is really amazing. The distance from the center of the transmit antennas, when you're in a field and you've got one operator on 40 on his antenna, and you've got another operator on 20 on his antenna, and they're 300 feet apart, 200 feet apart, there's a distance of 300 feet. And so the waves will eventually interfere. When you're on the same antenna, the distance is 0.
Right.
And so the waves don't interfere. It's amazing.
Now, you said custom triplexer. So this commercial custom, or this someone hand built? So care to divulge?
It's commercial.
I am always interested in triplexers. I know we got one for our club, but I'm like always wanting to pick up a few more, and they're almost like unattainable these days.
Yeah, we I forget the name of the company. He's sort of out of business right now, but it was not the one you get from DX Engineering. Give me a minute or two. It's the other guy out there. I'll come up with the name of it though if they're back in business.
We always throw out the show links, but and this is a custom. So it's a triplexer. So you got 3 stations. How you said you were running 5? So you running those other 2 stations like a VHF, UHF, or Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And so the other 2 will generally be 10 or 15, or if the guys want to, if it's not a contest and they want to run 17 or 12, you can go 17 and 12 on a vertical. The big Wolf River coil lovers. And so, yeah, it's 5 alpha is enough. 6 alpha is too much. 4 alpha is just not enough. And so, we've tried the off center fed. We love, it's okay. The end fed works the best. You generally only need 2 supports. And I was telling Paul earlier, we like to roll up with a truck and a trailer. And so one of the supports will be mounted on the trailer. And so if you looked at my I've got a small cargo trailer, and there's a PVC mount that's been permanently attached to the trailer. So you just throw a mast right in this hole, and you can run the antenna up a fiberglass mast up 18, 20 feet, and then it launches, towards the tree line for the rest of it, and you haul it up. Works really good. Yep.
Okay, so so your anti-club is pretty much, what I'm finding, at least in the YouTube verse and whatnot, there's a lot of similar things like Toad's group and the like that kind of fall in that same genre. And I think we're kind of pursuing our own little call sign, club call for Live Free and Ham here too as well. But so do you guys find that your numbers are growing? You're just kind of like this small kind of band of brothers that kind of remain consistent, and kind of what's that like ecosystem look like a little bit?
Yep. The group is definitely growing. Pat and Randall, KB1 K1 RBT. I think I butchered his call sign, but Pat and Randall, these guys are retired. They're much more able to get out and operate. The two of them will run POTA, and we've got Nefaro hooked up through POTA as the club. So the club is doing POTA work, and I just haven't personally officially done what do you have to do? 10 activation, 10 call queues to activate. I just haven't done it. Yeah. So yeah, the club is definitely growing. And we've got folks from other clubs kind of swinging by and visiting, and just to see what people who are enjoying it looks like.
Sure.
When you have a military setup with some of the bigger clubs, there's top
Not a
down
lot of room
leadership.
for error. Yeah.
That's right. And so we do it differently. It's just we'll do some planning. We'll do some pre-planning, maybe a weekend before. We're not planning 6 months in advance. I don't think we need to anymore. We've got to the point where we know the equipment. We know the biggest thing is actually finding the permit. Now I know I think it was you guys. I don't know stinking permit. Well,
yeah, we got lucky.
We've been thrown out of some pretty nice places because we didn't have a permit. For example, the White Mountain National Forest. What a beautiful place to run a station. We were up in the west side of the Kank, and it's Route 112. We got the antenna up in the air. We had stations running. We were tuned up, and the armed ranger showed up. He says, "Well, boys, where's your permit?" And this was 10 minutes before 2 p.m. when you kick off. And so lessons have been learned the hard way.
Was that on field day?
Yeah, that was field day 2020. 2020.
So
yep.
Were you able to pick at least pick up the pieces and just kind of move somewhere else, or did you just have to scrap the whole thing?
We attempted, but there was a lot of heartache over that one.
No, isn't a park pass good enough?
No, because this particular ranger said he was reading the rules, and he said he got to the point where he was in the section where if you are erecting an antenna, you must have a permit.
What?
And yep. And this is the intent of this rule. We've looked into it since. Trust me. The intent of that rule is that's right. The intent of it was for forestry and loggers. They'll set themselves up a repeater station on GMRS or Land Mobile, and they'll hoist a small tower up. They'll guy it down, and it's keyed into the ground, and it's self-supporting. That is commercial, and that needs a permit. The ranger wasn't able to make the distinction between commercial and ham radio. We should have done that for him by pulling the darn permit.
Yeah.
So,
I've had
lesson learned.
Yeah, I've had I've been when I was traveling, we had kids all over the country, and I was visiting them. When I was down in Florida, I went into a park, and the ranger at the front desk said, he says, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to do some ham radio." I explained what Parks on the Air is, and he goes, "You can't put anything in the trees. You can't throw your antenna in the tree." And I said, "Well, I got a vertical mobile, portable antenna." And he goes, "Oh," he goes, "Well, if you go over there, we even got electricity. So like I literally could have plugged in the radio. I'm like, no, I got batteries. I'm all good. But I do know that that's been one of the things. I mean, that's why I pretty much use my my vertical antenna, and just set it up anywhere, because I do know that there has been some people said you can't, like, especially some of these parks, they don't want anything to ruin the trees or get stuck up there, say and you're leaving a wire hanging from the tree or whatever. So I totally understand that, but you'd think the ranger would have been a little bit more understanding, especially you're up in the middle of the woods like that. Like, it wasn't like you guys were, erecting some huge tower or something. You're just throwing a wire in a tree.
Yeah.
Well, no, we actually were putting the mast up, and we guide the mast down. We brought the MFJ 1965,
Right.
and so we were.
But it's still temporary. It's not like you were.
Yeah.
You're going to be up there for weeks on end.
Let them bolster the trailer next year.
That's exactly right. The lesson learned, and so that's why you have it mounted to the truck now. Yep.
Yeah, as long as you get it on tires, it's not technically grounded.
Exactly
Cool.
right. So. Yeah, so we've been having a lot of fun with that group, and it is all you have to do is come in and join us one day. There's no dues. You come once, and you're a lifetime member. So Todd, I didn't know if you remember, but you are.
I know. I'm a lifetime member.
An honorary lifetime member.
I was at the first one.
That's right.
before it was even official. No, I really had a good time. I mean, I didn't do much. I didn't even make a contact because I was working on Craig's computer and I couldn't get through. But I was like, this is really cool. And then Eric took over, and it was a field day, and he forced me to get on the radio. And I think my first contact was like to Pennsylvania, and I was so psyched. And now I'm like, Pennsylvania, like that's like nothing. Exactly. So so between the two of you, you guys got me really into this. I got into ham radio just to be legal to fly my FPV drones. Now I do more ham radio now, I think, than I do model airplanes. So it's the way it is, I guess.
So you obviously, so with Nefaro itself, it's obviously growing, which is awesome. It's good to see, clubs thriving and people just, finding places to fit, because as I kind of, toe the line, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Our club, the club down the street, the big giant behemoth club, across town, whatever, find a place you can plug in, and you'll find your people, as they say. And like I said, I found my people between Paul and Todd and and many others, Ryan, and we all just stick together and we just love hanging out. So that definitely helps keep you cemented in whatever scenario or whatever club you like to be part of. So cool on that one. And
I totally agree. I think there's a lot of clubs out there. There's a lot of reasons for having these different clubs, and you've got to try them all. There's a fit for you for sure.
Yep. Now, you guys anti-digital modes or no? Got to ask a question.
Oh God, no. We'll run FT8. We'll run PSK, no problem. A bunch of us have the FT991 alphas, which are big radios, but they're field. They've got the built-in sound, and they've got VHF and UHF too. So I think the 991 alpha is really a perfect radio for a weekend field day operation.
I would include that, as well as its big brother, the DX10. Even though Todd has shown that you can make contacts with less than 2 watts in the finals left after you fried them. That
I did. I tell you that, Craig, last field day. I'm like, how come no one was responding to me? And it was working, and I'm hearing everyone. I couldn't get out. I was like, this is like the worst field day, because the year before I was like on fire. And finally we switched radios and it worked. And I sent it to Yesu, and like my finals went, and so with like no finals, I made like 2 or 3 contacts, I think.
Now,
it was pretty good.
I gonna say, I put the caveat on that. You had a hex beam hooked up to the thing. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was so. But now that I've got the Flex radio, the DX10 is it's almost ready to go to be a go box. So we had Ryan and I we fabricated a mount for it, because no one makes a bracket for the DX10. They do the 710, they do the 991A, but nothing for the DX10. I couldn't find it on eBay. So I got some metal, and we went over to W1EAA, Mike. He's got a barn and like every tool known to man. If you need something done, he's probably got the tool for it. We used a plasma cutter, cut it out, and went back to Ryan's house, bent it up, and got it actually into the Go box. So my DX10 is mounted. Now I'm just waiting for a few more parts that are back ordered, and we should have that all up and running. And that's going to be my new local POTA / field day radio that I'll leave in the back of the Jeep, and I'm going to pull into the parking lot. I'll be using that. We used it on our road for a few of the parks, and it worked pretty well.
Todd, we're going to put a little teaser out there. So those that haven't given Todd love, head over to W1STJ's YouTube channel, because we're trying to get
one yet.
we're trying to get him to post stuff to it. And so this is a perfect example of, a nice teaser to get you, to subscribe. So head over there and then start, spamming him with, comments saying, hey, where's your Go box?
Hey, I just got my new little camera, and let me tell you, this thing is awesome. This is the DJI, what is it? Something 3, Osmos 3, but it is quite the, it's so tiny. I mean, look at that. That's my hand. That's my hand. Oops. Look how tiny that thing is.
Which equals I will lose it.
Wow.
So I am looking forward to starting some YouTube videos. I did test it out at Zach's baseball scrimmage. It doesn't have very good zoom, but I'm not going to need zoom when I'm filming ham radio stuff now, am I? So that will be coming up. So yeah, look for that in the near future. Once I figure out how to edit videos and do all that kind of stuff, I'll get it up there. Be kind. I'm just starting, learning, so it's going to be really amateur in the beginning, but I figured in the next 10 years, I'll be right up there with Eric.
Okay. I want you to surpass me, you and Paul.
Have you seen my videos?
Yeah, they're awesome. If you want to see the Evil Knievel, motobike, head over to Paul's channel, KF4TPY. Check out his son on his motorbike, on his dirt bike. Sorry, we're not English here. And and many other antics too as well. All good stuff. Yeah, I can't discredit you, dude. You put videos out. That's the best you can do, right? I'm the same here.
Yeah. Well, so the funny thing is, though, I made that video out of 3 different clips, right? And so I sent the 3 clips to my wife, and then you called me, or I called you, right? However that worked, because we were at the ATV park, and so the kid's going around, and meantime I'm talking to Eric, and my wife's panicked because she only saw the one of him eating shit. And she was like, oh my God, what's wrong with him? Is he okay? Why aren't you answering the phone? I was like, I was on the phone with Eric.
It's more important than him bailing. He's fine. He just ate dirt.
Yeah, well, I got to say, Craig, when we did that first, when you brought me along, that was kind of like, I knew right then and there, like that mobile stuff, that was really interesting to me. And then Eric introduced me to POTA, and I got my general. We went to have lunch, and then on the way home, he's like, let's go do a park. And that's all it took. And I've been pretty addicted to it. It's like I haven't gone this month, and I'm having withdrawals. I'm like, I gotta get out there and activate a park. So
you guys are animals.
It's been a lot of fun. Animals. It's been a lot of fun, and like I said, I really enjoy it. And the mobile thing is where I love ham radio the best. I just love getting out there in a park or in the woods or on the side of the road and popping up the antenna. Next thing you know, I mean, I was in Louisiana. I was in Mississippi, and I had all day to kill. So I drove to Louisiana like 2.5 hours to activate a park. And I get there, and I'm just sitting in this parking lot. I'm in this black car, and this guy comes over with this big pickup truck. And now down south, like pickup trucks have like 6 foot lifts, not like 6 inches, like huge. This guy's like dumping like all kinds of crap in this dumpster, and he looks over at me, and he comes up, he goes, you FBI? I'm like, no, sir, I'm not FBI. He goes, you sure you're not FBI? I'm like, I'm not FBI, man. I said, I'm just doing ham radio. But here I am in this black car. I got an antenna out there, and I'm talking on the radio. The guy's probably thinking I'm like getting him on illegal dumping or something. But it's a lot of fun, and you know, I've gone to places like I never would have gone to if I wasn't doing this POTA stuff, like a lot of parks and stuff and areas like I never even visit. So
And we
it's a
talk
good
about
time.
I'm really jealous. You guys really make it. You guys really do a great job. I'm jealous that you guys are able to operate that quickly, that fast, and that frequently. You know, that's something that I actually I could take a lesson on as far as getting the packaged station ready to go in the trunk of the vehicle with a decent antenna, and knowing that you're going to be in a compromised situation every time, basically. And so you guys have really sorted all that out, and I got to give you props for that. I'm
Yeah,
jealous.
my POTA gear with the antenna, battery, everything fits in a small backpack.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome. I can just throw that in the car and I'm ready to go. And Eric and I did over, I think it was November, we did a rove up the coast. So we started in Mass, went all the way up to Maine. What did we do? 7 parks, I think, Eric. We did 7 parks, and we were just like what you said. No one had to talk. We weren't even talking. We would just get there. I'd set up, he'd set up, take down, and like we were in and out of parks like one after another. We'd activate it, go to the next one, and we had it down. By the end, we were doing it pretty well. Like we were pretty much in the zone, I would say.
Yeah.
So, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, Craig, kind of have it set up. I mean, you mentioned your field day where you can literally just, it's like almost like clockwork with a lot of your guys. I mean, that same kind of philosophy and strategy is what us POTA guys do, but we just do it on a smaller scale.
Right.
And it's all practice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right, we practice.
I totally agree. And one of my buddies, John N1PTX, he and I have been. He'd be the one that I would go with POTA. John, he's a hiker, backpacker, soda guy, POTA guy, and he's been trying to do satellites now for a couple of years. And every time that he's ready to go and try to do a satellite, I would give him a shout, and we'd try to do it together. And you know, it's practice. Certainly with satellites, and that's a different animal altogether. I don't know if you guys have had a whole lot of experience with that.
Is that did John recently change his call sign?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's I know John.
KB1EEU was his old call.
Right. Yeah. He's the one who had he had a little mast on he tied it to the fence and he ran the wire down and he's sitting at the thing and he turns on the radio. Next thing you know, he's talking to Italy, and that was it. I was like, that's amazing. Like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
That was
John,
it was him.
Stories about Craig, if you have a few, put them in the chat.
Yeah, Slater, he's out there too. It looks like.
Yeah. Oh, there he is.
That's cool. Yeah, it's funny what it's a small community, ham radio, certainly in southern New Hampshire, or even just New Hampshire alone. It's a small state, and you're going to run into the same people time and time again. So be nice and be respectful, because you're going to run into the same people all the time. It's not like we're a big state, so there's no place to hide. But yeah, it's that's New Faro, I think, in a nutshell. Like I said, it's I got another shout out to Pat W1YTT. If you he's been handling the Facebook post. We've got a Facebook page, Nefaro. I've been handling the website, which is nefaro.com. But it's kind of basic. It's just a Google site, whatever. It's again, we're not really out there looking for. We're not doing public service. We're not trying to do fundraising. It's just we're doing the bare minimum, enough to legally keep the FCC club call sign. I'm not going to lie.
Yep. All good stuff. So kind of what we kind of alluded to just obviously in the thumbnail there. So you kind of dovetailed into obviously Nefaro, and it sounds like it's definitely a good strong group of guys and gals that are all part of that. And so, but your kind of passion's more, I say in, fusion area a little bit. So, kind of talk a little bit around that and, what led you to the digital side or the dark side sometimes, and where they kind of put you today.
Yeah. The fusion side is the digital communications flavor, basically, that was adopted by Yaesu. It's a C4FM is the technical protocol, which it's C4FM is not a Yaesu protocol. That's a legit protocol that's allowed in the FCC rules. And so that's why you've got these hotspots out there, the YSF systems that are also using the same C4FM. So it's not C4FM isn't Yaesu. Fusion is what the Yaesu guys are doing. It's the third communications out there. First, we had D-Star. That was initiated with the Japan League, and then it was adopted, of course, by ICOM. The next one that was really kind of mainstream for ham radio was the DMR, and then Yaesu showed up late to the party. Fusion didn't roll from the Yaesu group until 2013, and so by then D-Star was mature. It was well placed. People knew what it was. And the DMR stuff was also well understood by 2013 too. In fact, New Hampshire, I think, was part of the DMARC system, had up to 96 repeaters all connected at one point.
Wow.
And so the difference between those three few flavors of digital comms is, I think, and this is personal opinion, I think the Yaesu approach was the most hammy, most amateur. I think it's the easiest to implement for an amateur operator. There's no heavy duty Motorola style programming of a radio necessary. There's no heavy DMR talk group programming necessary for it. And it's literally take the radio out of the package. The first thing the radio does from a factory reset is it boots up and asks for your call sign. That's all it needs. And so once you hit the button that says put me into digital transmit mode, it then includes your call sign. And that's it. You're working. It's different than the DMR groups, because the DMR came from a commercial world. And the DMR, I think it's DMR Mark. It literally has Motorola in the name. Okay. So you've got to be a very keen operator when it comes to computing, when it comes to code plugs. This is not for the faint of heart. I am a fairly technical person, and I had a really hard time putting together a code plug with my first entry into the DMR world. I tried for 6 months to get DMR to work. And then I just quit. I sold it. I said, I'm all set.
You have a DMR repeater near you.
Yeah. Bill Barber, he's a great NE1B. He's had me up to his house. We've looked at the repeater. He's a member of the club that I used to be a part of. And yeah, Hudson, New Hampshire has some really strong DMR stuff here. It just wasn't for me. Yeah. So I decided to. And then at that point, I had already chosen my Yaesu. And I was telling, I think, Paul earlier tonight, I had settled on the Yaesu ecosystem, not because it's the greatest radio of the world, but because the terminology between radio to radio to radio and the menu-driven structures were similar enough. Whether it's a VHF mobile or the 891, the 991, they're all similar enough to me as a dumb engineer. So then, of course, Fusion showed up in the Yaesu line, and so I jumped into the Fusion stuff head first. Tried to do the hotspot stuff. The hotspot, I finally realized that the hotspot stuff where you can buy those $100 units from Amazon, it isn't real Fusion. That's kind of the other side of stuff. And so there's once you start to get complicated with it, any engineer can make it more complicated.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm good at that.
Yeah. But yeah, we decided, there was 4 of us at one point that decided that there should be a structured group of like-minded hams around this New England Fusion thing. And so the idea was floated that we should put together a digital club. And because it's digital, we don't need to have it based in Billerica, or it doesn't need to be based in Hudson, or it doesn't need to be based in Stoneham. It can be literally digital. And then, of course, it was the dead, dark times of COVID anyway, so no one was having physical meetings anyways. So a digital online club was born. The four of us originally, of the four that chartered that first meeting, two of us are still on the club, and it's sorry, it literally, I was literally laid up with a knee injury, and I was really on some good stuff at that point. And I said, "How hard could it be to start a club?"
Sure.
So yeah, that
I
was
did
March.
DMR before that, so I should be okay.
That's right.
Everything will be easy.
That was February and March of 21, and we had then posted on the net, because I was one of the net control operators for the Friday night net here in New England, NFR. The Wolfpack network is, well, it's no longer the only, but I think it was the first large scale connected digital network here in New England, based in Stoneham, Mass. And it's hosted by Whiskey Oscar 1 Victor Echo Sierra. That's WO1VES, Brian out of Stoneham. And so he started all this back in 2013, 2014. And at one point we had, well, he had at that point, before the club was in existence, Goffstown, New Hampshire was tied in. Pepperell, Massachusetts was tied in. Ossipee, New Hampshire was tied in. And a handful of backyard repeaters were tied in, like mine. I've got a small backyard repeater at my house too. So at the time, I think we had 8. And I think we're up to 13 or so connected, all full-time networked repeaters. Like I said, the Wolfpack is no longer the only fusion group here in New England. UFB, they're another fusion group that also has a system of network repeaters. But the question was asked, what happens if one of these node operators, and we're all just volunteers, and we're all just using our own money to build these little connections? What if our house burns down? What if we lose our job? We can no longer fund the internet connection, or we blow up the little modem box that connects the computer to the radio. Who was around to help that node operator put this thing back on the air? And so the idea of a legitimate club, traditional club, was born with the mission of to support those node operators when needed, and to help expand the understanding of fusion. Like Todd was saying, we've got a great little tech net on Sundays to do just that, to kind of teach folks about fusion. And so that's why the club was started, to try to support it, all the node operators. Now, there's a handful of clubs that actually own repeaters. Like, for example, the Lakes Region Repeater Association out of, I think they're up out of, officially, I think he's out of Ossipee. But the LRRA, they have a repeater, 442-100 in Ossipee, New Hampshire, tied into the Wolf Den. And the node that feeds that is actually N1EUN's node out of, and he's in New Durham, New Hampshire. And so it takes 2 to tango for the most part, because a lot of these locations do not have internet at the tower on the top of the mountain. And so what we generally have is the repeater up on the mountain with power, and then someone's home station, their home QTH, is feeding the network to the repeater. And so it's a very unique way of running things, because it's a cooperative thing. There's no money being exchanged except for out of our own wallets to the power company. And so it became such a thing that people really enjoyed it, and it really depended on it for fun and enjoyment, that the club was deemed a necessary thing.
Now, do a lot of these repeaters in general, like, are they all scattered in terms of either being in people's own homes, or are they actually in commercial sites, or are they a mix of both?
Yeah, the repeaters are a mix of both. I'd say the most traditional repeater is the Goffstown repeater, and that is at the top of South Mount Uncanunok, and it is definitely in amongst an array of other commercial antennas. So that's a traditional mountaintop repeater. Pepperell, that's on a very tall tower in Pepperell, and there's no mountains down there, but that's at Harry's house. It's a legit tower, but it's not on a mountain. And then there's like Hudson, New Hampshire, mine that just fills in around Hudson and Nashua. It gets out about 13, 14 miles. But yeah, it's a good mix of both.
Isn't
So,
the go ahead, Paul.
all right. So, just out of curiosity, so each of the club members then has the Fusion box, and it's connected to a dedicated antenna.
Not at all. The Fusion box, and I presume, Paul, you're talking about the HRI 200?
Yes.
Okay. The HRI 200 is the interface between a radio, and the computer. If you wanted to host a room or have direct connection into the system, and there's two ways where the digital rooms connect. There's these HRI 200s need to have a static IP address. And so, for example, my repeater has an HRI 200. I have a nice static IP address. I've got fiber optic here at the house. I'm really lucky. And so my HRI 200 box is talking directly to Stoneham's box, W01VES. And so it's getting over the direct IP from mothership to my box, and then it comes out my repeater. Direct, no router involved. This is no longer necessary. That was intended for repeaters really only. Since about 2018, there's a new way of connecting called the PDN. That stands for Portable Digital Network. Sorry, Portable Digital Node. And what that allows you to do with your FT2 or FT3 or FT5, those are handhelds, or the FTM 100, the FTM 400, and the 200 now, and the FTM 200. Those are the mobiles that are available. They're not all in production. But these radios now have the ability to connect to your PC and connect through kind of a router situation over in Japan. It quickly bounces out of Japan and comes back, and Japan acts as not a central server, but Japan acts as a central switch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the traffic is not, and the traffic is not running from New Hampshire to Japan and then back to the other node. It's not. It does that just once, and once the PDN knows the path to get from one node to the next, it can handle it quickly. So you no longer need the HRI 200 if you just want to get on to the Wires X system. And that's it. Just requires the PDN capable radio.
Well, so all right, I guess maybe I wasn't clear enough. So what I was really asking was, like, I have a node. It's running Pi-Star, and it's in DMR to Fusion crossover, and I have the Wolf Den programmed in my DMR radio, and I can connect to a Fusion that way. But for the repeater aspect that all of your club members have, right, where you're actually sending the signal back and forth with the actual repeaters.
Okay.
Do you guys all have to have that HRI?
Or you need to have you at least need to have, for me, I don't have that, but I have the Yaesu digital radios that allow me to get on to Goffstown or any of the other repeaters, just go into digital mode. Kind of like, so like our repeater on our club repeater it's a Yaesu repeater and it has digital.
Mm-hmm.
The Goffstown one is connected to the Wolfpack. So I can get into the Wolfpack and everything that goes on there just by putting in the Goffstown repeater, digital, boom, I'm there, and I'm in like anyone else. And I'm just going with, the only thing that I'm doing is I have to rely on that repeater is going to be up and running. So sometimes, like, I've been on nets and some repeaters have died for some reason, or they've lost contact or signals. And sometimes it happens in net controls and they're switching to different repeaters, or they're getting on their nodes or whatever they're doing. But you technically don't need it. All you need, I mean, I started on the 70D. I think that was the first. Well, I could hit the. I hit the Goffstown repeater with it.
Repeater owner, come on.
Okay, so Todd, you're not wrong. And we, all of us end user hams, you're absolutely correct, Todd. If you want to get into the system and talk with everyone else, that's all you do need. But I think so. To get back to Paul's question, if you want to host a node and provide a traffic path for everybody coming out of the repeater, full throttle, full time, 24 hours a day, yes, HRI $200. Yes, please. Because you're gonna you need that good IP address, which is stable. The PDN is going to be going through your Wi-Fi laptop, which is garbage in comparison. Yes, the HRI 200. If you're going to host a node, like for example, Bob N1EUN, all right, he hosts the node for the Ossipee, New Hampshire repeater. He's 10 miles away, 15 miles away, and when the Wolfpack transmits over the network, it goes to his computer IP address. The HRI 200 then PTTs, hits the transmit on his radio. His radio then bursts it off to the repeater, and then the repeater then spreads it out. Okay, so you need that HRI 200 if you want to fully provide traffic for everybody. Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk about? So there was a time, and this was when I was new. I actually talked to Carlos. He's I don't know if you know Carlos, but he jumps out of airplanes and tries to make contacts. Have you ever heard of him?
John Pete Slater's been told me about him. Yeah.
He's pretty. So I was just driving to work, and I was on the Goffstown repeater, but someone had changed it to America's Link, and Carlos was on that, and I didn't realize, because I was kind of new, but I had a conversation with him, a QSO with him. We were talking, and he, and I knew him from YouTube and stuff. So I thought, I was like, oh, wow, I got this YouTuber on. But then I found out that it was America's Link, because after we were done, it then switched back to the Wolfpack. So that was another thing that I learned that you can do that through your radio, but that it's set up that after you're done using it for so many minutes or something, it automatically reverts back to the main, whatever the original one was for. So.
Yeah. And Goffstown is exactly like that. Paul, he owns the repeater, and the club actually worked with Paul to get that back on the air. It was down. Okay, no, Paul.
Not you,
Paul Angelo. His call sign eludes me, but he is the operator of the Goffstown repeater, and that machine went down late fall last year and through the early winter, and the club put together it was late winter last year and early spring. The club put together a campaign to fundraise and get that repeater put back on the air. And so Yaesu has this great program where clubs can purchase the repeater. And here we are, finally, we're doing our mission, right? A legit club is going to make the order for this repeater, put it back on the air, in cooperation with the operator Paul up at on top of Mount Unkanunok. It's just synergy. It just works, and we're really proud of how it works. So go ahead.
So talk a little bit about. Obviously we touched upon kind of the Wolves network, and it's quite a vast set of repeaters, and so all of them in some form or fashion are all backhauled to each other. So when you're connected, say, to the Wolves, or you're connected to a local repeater, you're transmitting across multiple states, multiple spans. What's that kind of geographic area look like in general?
Yep. Right now, the primary repeaters are in central New Hampshire, southern New Hampshire. We have some repeaters in Maine that come on for the nets only. And the main repeaters actually are analog repeaters. And so that gets to the concept of fusion in itself. The word fusion was chosen because at the time, remember 2013, we're trying to fuse the analog operators with the digital operators. And some of the DR2 machines, well, actually back in the day, the DR1X machines would be running analog with an audio path. And so when an analog operator would get on with their 2-meter repeater, the 2-meter mobile, the repeater connected to the HRI 200 injected the audio path, transformed it into ones and zeros, and that fused the digital ops to the analog operators. Maine right now is one of the only ones that I know that's left that's still analog. None of the New Hampshire repeaters, none of the Massachusetts repeaters. Gloucester is one of them. Pepperell, Stoneham. We're trying to stand up one in Salem, New Hampshire as well. And we were actually thinking about going to the USS Salem and we were offered a spot on the USS Salem for the antenna. Wow. And because you don't need the internet there, you can beam the internet across the bay onto the repeater and then off the ship. And we've got some guys in the South Shore who can do just that. They can run the node for the club, their club members, and beam it right across the bay to the North Shore. And so that's one of the things we're thinking about. Yeah, it's very, very vast. Now, we mentioned very briefly the YSF, and Paul, your hotspot is using the YSF system. It's not WiresX. WiresX is the proprietary voice network that connects all these HRI 200s, all the PDNs, and there's a room number. For example, here, the Wolfpack, the Wolf Den is room number 28941 on WiresX. The YSF system is totally different. The way we connect the YSF system, which is you can use equipment that can get into the Brandmeister system, the DMR system. Okay, those hotspots are not WiresX. They're not. You didn't buy that from Yaesu. It has nothing to do with Yaesu. It just uses C4FM, which is what makes these things compatible with the Yaesu radios. Mm-hmm. Those YSF systems are bridged to the WiresX system, and the way we do that is literally with a tiny hotspot down in Stoneham, and it transmits directly over the air, the 30 feet, into the repeater. And there's a RF bridge that bridges the YSF and the WiresX. This is why when we have the Friday night nets, which is Friday night at 8 p.m. on WiresX room number 28941 or YSF room US-Wolf Den, that's why when the bridge goes down or the WiresX repeaters goes down, the folks on the YSF system can still talk to each other. And they can't hear net control sometimes. Okay. Because these are two different computer networks, think of it as two different LANs, and the switch that goes between them just got severed briefly. And so that's one of the things that it's a distinction, but it's an important one.
So let's kind of shift gears here. So obviously, Wolves Network, you guys have a couple of nets, or at least a very strong net that I know kind of reaches beyond New England in general. And maybe you could talk a little about that, and then kind of dovetail into your tech net, which I really kind of want to dive into the nuts and bolts on, because I think it's really valuable for a lot of folks. And you've had some, guest, royalty on it a couple of times too, as well. And with your tech net. So kind of talk a little about Wolves and, how the span, and
sure.
reach of that goes, and go from there.
Sure. Yeah. Let's start with the Wolfnet, the Wolfpack network. That is the Friday night net. There's 4 or 5 of us on net control. I'm just on the team, and Brian, he's one of the members, W01VES, W1TAT. Chris is a net control operator. Jerry out in El Rosa, Minnesota, is one of our net control operators, KF0AUV, which gets to the point of digital being all everywhere. And so we have check-ins. We have frequent check-ins from Washington State. We have check-ins from Michigan. We have check-ins from California that we can almost guarantee that they're going to be there every Friday night. We've got a couple guys over in Japan. Masa, he checks in frequently from Japan, and of course it's 8 a.m. for him. But it's a lot of fun. The reach is global, and that's not an exaggeration at all. It is global. And when you have a good connection at where you're at, maybe you're at the campground and you're using a YSF hotspot through your cell phone tether. Sometimes that's a great connection. Sometimes it's pretty choppy. It can get pretty choppy sometimes. But, if you have the right guy in the hot seat running the net control, they can generally work through that.
Yeah. And so you guys kind of, with that net in general, of like, because I started when I got back into the hobby, I started to kind of use that as a way to connect with my 300, and I found that was very, very valuable and a fun net because it was pretty small in the scale. But then, somewhere along the line, you started having a couple of people, from the West Coast showing up, and at that point, the net was getting really, really long. I
Yeah.
mean, as
Yeah.
we were commenting on Todd's like 18 people, you were up like 35 people on the net, and
Yeah.
that's pretty huge from a net standpoint.
At one point we had one of the guys was posting on Facebook. This is a couple of years ago now, probably 4 years ago. One of the guys was posting our schedule on a Wires X Nets page, and at one point we had over 60 one night, and we're like, "Geez, we can't do this anymore," because it went 3 hours, and it was coast to coast, and we just no one could do it. The other part that you have to run into is the personalities on net control. If you're a drag chewer, you're going to want to talk to this check-in person for more than 17 seconds. And you want to know where he's from and what he had for dinner. You can't do that if you've got 30 check-ins. And so it comes to time management sometimes. Most will tell me that I go too fast, but I don't know.
And your question of the day is more like, "Hey, do you like peanut butter creamy or peanut butter, nutty?"
That's right. We had to stop the open-ended questions. What's your favorite? Right, we had to because of that. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Like last week, we had 30 check-ins last week when I was running that, and
That is crazy, but that's an awesome problem to have. Like, I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
The HF nets are pretty huge in the vast expanse and stuff like that. But like to have something like digital and be able to still continue to maintain, 20 to 30 check-ins on a given net time is definitely. I applaud you guys, and I'm glad you guys stay the course. Because it is a trudge sometimes. Being net control.
Yep.
But I'm
that's another thing, Eric. You've got to have, if you're having a net, you've got to have a good team together. It's not fair to put it on one net control operator, unless he's a real masochist, right? To have 4 or 5 in the rotation, that means you can almost go a month and a half before you have to go back on.
wow,
And
which
so
is good. That's a breather.
Yeah. It lets you breathe, lets you go have fun with your wife and the kids at the campground, whatever. It allows you to have coverage when you can't do it, when you're on the schedule. And getting chained and handcuffed to a net every week at the same time, and you're the only person doing it, that's
A lot of work.
that's not cool. And so that's why I'm really really proud to be part of the team.
Yeah, we had our club does a net every evening, except when we have now first Monday of the month, I think there's an Aries. The Aries uses it, and then when we have club meetings, obviously we don't do it. But we had our one guy, K1XF, John. He did it every day, every single day. And I don't know. He had asked me if I wanted to do a day, and then I started asking other people. So now I think he only what does he do it like 2 or 3 times a week? Yeah, maybe 3 times a week, but it's definitely gotten he's appreciated it because it can be it's a commitment, and then you're doing it every day. Like I find it hard just to do it even once a week. I mean, we do our podcast recordings after the net, and it's hard because sometimes if we have a guest on, if the net's got 15, 18 people versus 5, it makes a difference.
We're gonna have to have a conversation offline there, Paul, Todd, about that. Because it's really interfering with the podcast here.
Maybe I can switch with Tim or something.
Don't change it. We'll change it.
Let me switch gears real quick. I know we're running out of time here. For me, I try to keep my nets around an hour, and so I know folks have stuff to do. So I feel bad going over an hour, but I really want to get to the tech net.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please. Let's kind of shift gears and focus into the tech net and talk a little bit about that, because that I think has really got a lot of value behind it. And, from that, it's obviously had a lot of, interest, and I've tuned into a couple of times. So, talk about TechNet. Go ahead.
TechNet was one of the reasons. So once we had stood up the club, and we've done everything. We've got the federal tax ID number. We've got we're state registered. We've got actual finances and actual banks, brick and mortars. So we're a real legit club. We realized, well, we've got to do stuff. So one of the activities was somebody says, we're a ham radio club. Why don't we do ham radio? And so we
What a
decided to
brilliant idea.
yeah, right. Why not? So we decided to do a net, and we didn't want to do just another rag net. There's plenty of those. There's nothing wrong with that, but we wanted to do something a little more geeky, a little more technical. And so the concept of the tech net came about. And not only is it technically oriented, we also broke the mold when it comes to the format. Typically you've got a net control who's looking for check-ins. We add it to the list, ding ding ding, linearly, and then once we are done check-ins, we go back to number one. We ask the question, and bang bang bang, linearly we go down through it, pass one, and then we do a pass two, and then we do a 73 round, right? If we're lucky. We wanted to dispel that. We wanted to get to the meat and potatoes of a topic. And so we decided to go with a round robin approach. And so we do a real super quick check-in. We'll take check-ins quickly over the air or over the net logger. And we actually recommend folks to have net logger, and I'll get to that in a minute. But with having the net logger on their computer screen or their iPhone, they know who's next in line. And so once we run through the quick checks, we ask them to do a quick introduction and then pass it off to the next station. We do this lickety split super fast. We're not going to talk about what you ate for dinner. We don't want to know what the weather is or the temperature.
Or whether you had a
Once
doctor's
everyone's in, we start in with the subject matter expert, the SME. And the subject matter expert is sometimes also in the net control, but not always. Sometimes we've got like I said, even on the tech net, we have another 4 or 5 different operators for net control. Many of them are also Friday night nets, but we're all members of the club at that point. The subject matter expert then presents a topic, and whether it's how do you program your PDN, how do you register your PDN with the Wires X, what's SWR, how do you get an antenna on your car, whether we try to stick to fusion topics, but you run out of topics pretty quick. So we'll move over to VHF, UHF, and we'll start to talk about HF. There's a handful of guys like Jim, AC1MT. He's a huge POTA operator and one of our net controllers. He will often do we'll do a talk on POTA. And the way this works, you talk about your discussion. Think of this as like a seminar or a training for work. You got an hour, lunch and learn. You've got an hour, so you don't want to mess around. He starts in on the topic, and he waits every 3 or 4 minutes, and then if someone has a question or a comment, they'll key up and they'll say net comment. One of the cool things about Fusion is net control then sees their call sign come across the screen of the radio. Bang, we know who that was. Okay, we'll stop the SMA. We'll ask for the comment, and the SME will then process the comment. Either say I don't know, or they'll go into it, and this goes on and on for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's not lecture, but it's not just a linear rag chew either. The way we set it up originally was not everybody wants to talk for 3 minutes. Some people just want to get on and say, my name is, and then, oh my God, I don't want to talk anything. Some don't want to say anything at all. And so by having this round robin approach and this whole net comment does the pause and then allows the net controls then to go after the net comment, it allows those folks who have comments that are germane to the conversation to get them in, and then you can have a back and forth. And this discord between the SME and the commenter is part of the lesson. Everyone learns from everything. And so the format of our tech nets is unique, I think, in that manner. And I think people get a lot out of it that way.
Now, is your tech net larger scale? Is it just mostly New England, or you guys get onto? Is it part of the Wires X platform? So somebody globally could be part of this.
Yeah, it's global. It's we're running on room 28941 and also the US Wolf Den. So it's the exact same Wolf Pack network. So it's the exact same global reach that we have.
Awesome. Oh, you had a question? Go.
Yeah, I forgot. I had a good one too.
Oh man, delay. All right. Well, cool. So how long? So just kind of just some summary. So TechNet's been running for about how long for you guys since you started it from inception to today?
March 2021, March 30th, 2021 is when we instituted the club. I think we had the TechNet stood up by July of 2021. So it's about 3 years.
Wow. And that's awesome. That's a great testament to be able to say going 3 years strong and still, keep plugging away at it. And, I've been on it a couple of times myself, just from my own personal side of things. And I have to say, I enjoy just listening to it because, it's one of those things that, if you, want to jump, if you want to listen, it's great. But if at the same time you want to jump in and be part of it, it's one of those things that you could easily, fall into without too much effort. And so, I applaud you guys for doing something like that because it's definitely a much needed space and it's great for new people and people that have had a fusion radio for who knows how long and never ever pressed that button on their, radio that says wires X, So,
Yeah. The club has a nice resource on www.nefg.us. So that's nefg.us is the club website. We have some resources on there. We have some FAQs on how to set up your radio. We have we have access to some documents that we've developed, access to other YouTubers that have been developed out there that are all free use. And so and we've also been. We used to have a nice newsletter. We've had to get away from that because we just didn't have enough people in the leadership of the board. Which I think if you guys ever want me on ever again, I don't know if you would, but I think that's a topic all in itself in board dynamics on a club. But yeah,
I will definitely take you up on that offer because we did touch one of our previous episodes on clubs and whatnot, but I think we just really barely only talked about the very high level surface of that, and I'm sure there's definitely a need for something like that going forward. So yeah, we'll make sure we ping you when we get to that point.
cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I remembered what I wanted to ask you.
Well, too late. You're all done. No, sorry.
So,
You take first, Danny? Yeah, good.
given the the technical aspect of these nets, have you ever thought of recording them for posterity so that you could, I don't know, throw them up on YouTube or put them up on a podcast and then people could, reference them later?
We've thought about it for 3 years, and we've been trying different ways for 3 years. The trouble, Paul, is getting both sides of the conversation into the system. And we didn't have the StreamYard. This is new to me. I love it. I think it's the answer to my problem. But if you were trying to do it with, and we were just trying to do it with Zoom and Camtasia and of course YouTube, getting both sides of the conversation out of that radio into the audio in path on the PC to record it, that was the trouble.
Okay.
Well, StreamYard will solve that, but also it's your answer to the problem, but it's also your headache too. So just
I'm sure. That,
once you get in the world of streaming, it's a challenge and it's in and of its own. So you can't say it's all roses and unicorns on this end.
Yeah. Not only the TechNet to record the TechNet, we've also wanted to record nets. So I don't have a lot of public content on my personal web YouTube. I have a ton of content, but I have to give you the link. I use it in my teaching job as I'm an AutoCAD instructor as well, and so I use YouTube for AutoCAD. And I have what, 10 years, 16 weeks every year. I have thousands of hours of AutoCAD instruction on the YouTube personally. And And I haven't made it all public because I thought I could make money from it, but so whatever. The problem with that I've found with the YouTube, and I wanted to do some training on nets. I have a couple net YouTubes out there on my personal page, and it works okay because it's mostly screen share. But again, getting to the point where the YouTube video was capturing the incoming radio audio from over the air and also the operator, me. That was beyond me. I've tried everything. I've tried voice meter. I've tried soft mixers on the PC. I've tried hardware mixers. And I always end up getting ground loops, and it's just garbage audio. So I've been struggling with on that a little bit.
We'd be happy to help you. Paul is a genius when it comes to that stuff. He's straightened me out 3 or 4 times, and I've been in sound probably 10 years. So yeah, I get I get it. And we'll talk offline about that for sure to help you out. We'd love to, get some of that captured and help you out along the way.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, so let's kind of put a bow on this. So, what 1 or 2 things you'd kind of want to throw at people just to, encourage them either to, participate in, if they're in the New England area, maybe in Nefaro, or, if you're, interested in fusion or that side of things, where would you like to point them in terms of, whether the Wolves, net is better or the tech net or both, or, you tell me what last thing.
I think it's a great question. I think the best thing to do would be to just listen to the Wolfpack Network when you have a minute, and try to tune in on Friday nights, and just try to tune in on Sunday afternoons. It's at 3 p.m. on Sunday, where the Tech Net, and just participate. That's the best thing we can say. Just participate. I've been a fusion operator for 0 days or 100 days. Some of the greatest ones we've got are we've got some 80-year-olds who have been hams for 60 years, and they're active with our group. And then of course you have the brand new guys who walk out of the candy store with a brand new FT3 or FT5 now. And the guys down there will tune it up to the Goffstown repeater just to show them how it goes. And it takes all types, and we love working with everybody on that stuff because it's fun and it's easy. The fusion, the Wires X is easy.
Way easier than programming a code plug by any stretch of the imagination. All right, cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Craig. It was definitely an education and understanding. Obviously, the Wolves Network and the TechNet and all the things you do with your anti-group, which I'm going to have to become a member because heck, I love doing a field day myself. But as always, it's a pleasure. And so if people wanted to reach out to you to either talk to you about Nefaro or any of the fusion stuff or whatever, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Honestly, it's my call sign at ARRL.net. That's the best way to get to me.
Cool. All right. Well, as always, we want to thank everybody in the stream. We had 24 listeners tonight. We appreciate all you guys for being part of tonight's live stream. And as always, if you haven't liked or subscribed to Live Free and Ham, and I'm gonna just have to say to you, ain't
nobody got time for that.
Exactly. So, I ain't got time for that. And, for what it's worth, I should bring myself back into the mix here.
Where'd he go?
That's really all I got to say, and I get time for that. But anyway, so as always, thank you guys for listening and watching. And just one last thing is tomorrow is our regular bi-weekly drop. And that one is going to be a fun one. That's got Mark Halibut from Halibut Electronics talking about OHIS. So if you're into contesting consoles and the open headset standard, you're going to want to make sure you listen to that. So run over to our website at livefreeandham.com and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. And as always, make sure you check out all the links that we'll have in our show notes tonight for this show. And 24 hours later, this will actually be recorded to our podcast as well, just in case you missed it. So with that, thank you guys for being part of this. And Craig, again, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This is a hoot. I really appreciate it.
Sounds good, and we will definitely take you up on the future talks about club, nuts and bolts. And with that, I'd like to say 7-3.
7-3, guys.
7-3.
7-3.